hour, in a bid to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, the Foreign Minister of France has urged Iran to take the last offer on the table with the United States and other key powers, further warning that the window of opportunity is ready to close. Several months of indirect talks between Iran and the United States have founded on various issues, especially when Tehran insisted that the International Atomic Energy Agency should close an investigation into uranium traces that were found at the 3 undeclared sites. Meanwhile, on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, the French foreign minister said that there will not be a better offer on the table, and it is absolutely up to Iran to take the right decisions, further clarifying that there will be no initiatives underway to unblock the situation. Her comments were also echoed by the EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell, who said that he saw no prospect of any progress during this week's gathering of the world leaders.
The positions of the Europeans and the position of the United States of America is identical. Long negotiations have taken place. A text was put on the table which reflected the point of balance and the possible agreements from the month of March. And since then, it has been the subject of exchanges and final adjustments. But unfortunately, Iran has not given a positive answer to this proposed agreement and has even backtracked on another part of its obligation that has to do with the NPT. Therefore, the window of opportunity, which was only slightly open at the end of August, seems to be closing.
Meanwhile, Western diplomats have said that there are no active negotiations at the moment and that it was highly unlikely that a breakthrough could happen before the US midterm elections in November. The West has accused Iran of going backwards in the talks. However, Tehran denies all of these allegations. In another statement, Iran's nuclear chief has said that there are indications on how the IAEA intends to close the case of 3 sites in the country. European officials, on the other hand, have been adamant on how Iran must give credible answers to the IAEA's questions, fearing that if the issue was swept under the carpet, then it could weaken the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. Meanwhile, the Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, who is set to address the world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday, has said that Iran would be serious about reviving the nuclear deal if there were guarantees from the United States that they would not withdraw from the deal, like it did in the past under former US President Donald Trump.
I was informed after the tour.
For more on this, we are being joined by our correspondent Rosie Burchard from Brussels. Hello to you, Rosie. Is there any possibility of this impasse breaking? EU and France have said that this is the last window of opportunity for Tehran now.
That's right. The European Union's Foreign Policy Chief, Josep Borrell, when he put this text on the table, a compromise text, a text which was supposed to try and bring these 2 sides, Washington and Tehran, together, Josep Borrell really stressed at that time that this was sort of a take-it-or-leave-it offer. And there was some weeks in which there was some hope in some parts that that things would simply fall into place. But now it looks more likely that things are going to fall apart. Now, let's rewind to understand the genesis of this deal. Now, back in 2015, this deal was signed, and the idea behind it was that Iran would agree to curb or limit its nuclear activities in exchange for relief in terms of sanctions, most Western sanctions imposed on Iran. Then in 2018, under the presidency of US President Donald Trump, the United States withdrew from that deal, and it has been in tatters or on life support ever since. Now, the European Union is the coordinator, the mediator of talks which are aimed at bringing that deal back to life. Now, the EU's Foreign Policy Chief, Josep Borrell, has been speaking once again, this time in New York on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, and he has been playing down all expectations or hopes of a breakthrough in the coming days. And of course, the United Nations General Assembly, where leaders from around the world come together, there's opportunities for FaceTime for leaders to meet face to face, is usually considered a place in which leaders can try to come closer together or to negotiate, to broker. But on this particular occasion, it looks like there will be no meetings whatsoever in terms of at the highest level between leaders to try and broker any deal here or move negotiations further forward. The Iranian side says it has no plans to meet with US negotiators. Meanwhile, the EU's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell, when asked if he had plans to meet with the Iranian president, said that the talks seemed to really be at a stalemate and that meeting the president seemed unlikely to resolve that situation.
Right, and Rosie, Iran has asked the US for guarantees for reviving the deal. What does that signify for this deal?
Well, what Iran is asking for, it's reiterated that call, but it's not a new one, is that the US guarantees that it will not withdraw from the deal unilaterally, as did happen in 2018. And what Tehran has been saying over and over again is essentially blaming the US for the breakdown of this deal and insisting that the ball is in the US's court and that Iran was not the one that withdrew. But in the meantime, since the US withdrew from that deal, Iran has also backtracked on most of its obligations within that deal. That's certainly an assessment from the European Union side, and the EU's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell has warned that nuclear activities in Iran are now at an alarming level. So both sides of this deal, the sanctions relief and the curbs on the nuclear activities, seem to now be well off track. However, we've heard similar accusations from both sides here. Both Washington and Tehran are blaming each other for a lack of progress. There was, as the French foreign minister referred to, a window of opportunity. Well, that was back last month when negotiators met indirectly in Vienna, and indirectly that's because Tehran refuses to speak to Washington directly, which means that European Union officials are engaging in literal shuttle diplomacy. At that time, they were running between different hotels, talking to different negotiators, and there was plenty of buzz about the situation. It seemed like there was a real momentum toward trying to get this deal revived. That momentum seems to have dissipated, and as you pointed out, Alison, what is on the horizon are these midterm elections in the United States, and that's seen as a stumbling block further for the deal on the domestic side, because there's plenty of pressure from different parts of the political spectrum within the US not to agree to this deal to come back into place, because there is some fear that it may be worse than the original accord which was brokered in 2015. So hopes that may have been here in, for example, in the European Union, the coordinator of this talks on reviving this deal, any hopes of it coming back to life now appear to be on hold. The EU's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell saying that, really describing the current situation, as I said, as a stalemate.
Rosie, thank you very much for bringing us all the latest details on that deal.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.